So, Bags, I've told you this story before, but since we have an audience now, I figured this would be a fun time to tell it again. It was summer 2016. I had just graduated high school. I was at a friend's house. We're at a party. Statute of limitations is up. We could say this. One of my friends was a little inebriated,
Where is this going?
and he proceeded to put his arm around me, looks me dead in the eye, and says, "You're going to be the next Andrew Baggarly."
Wow.
And I remember
Talk about life goals.
And I remember your response when I told you that the first time. I don't know if you do. Do you?
Was I inebriated when you told me this story? Because I have no recollection of it.
No. I remember I told this to you at least once, and I think your response to me was,
You tell me a lot of stories, so.
I do tell you a lot of stories, but your response, if I remember correctly, was aim higher.
Well, hey, you know what? Prior me actually feels good about that response. Good for prior me. That was about what I should have said. Yeah.
Shout out to prior Andy.
Yeah.
Well, we got current Andy on.
Yeah, I'm current Andy.
Day 9, day
now.
10 of spring training, whatever it is. Bags, welcome to the show. I've been trying to get you
Hi.
on this for a while.
Hi, well, I finally succumbed. You finally got me. It's been probably years of badgering, but here I am. I'm happy to be here.
Bullying works. Peer pressure works.
No,
Don't let
bully
anybody tell
anyone.
you.
Don't bully anybody.
Don't let anybody tell you that it doesn't, but
Be a nice person.
do be a nice person. At least try to be a nice person. But
You are a nice person. That's why I'm on this show.
I try. See, being a nice person occasionally helps you out in life.
does.
But, we've had again, it's like day 9, day 10, whatever it is, of spring training. We've seen a fair amount of live bullpens, only lives because we can't go back there. We've seen some sim games now, and there's been a couple guys, you watch them and your eyes kind of perk up, the ears kind of perk up, and say, wow, where's that coming from? And I think the only appropriate place to start today is with one Carson Whisenhunt. You obviously wrote a story on Whisenhunt a couple days before, so you got the jump on us. But we didn't know it was this. Like, you put in your story that there was a bit of an extra velo. And, extra velo, considering where he was last year, could be like 94,
94,
95. Yeah. And that's like, okay, that's solid.
Yeah.
It was not that. Well, it was that, but that's not the big number we were looking at today.
No, but it was like 94, 95 in his bullpens, and you always get that extra adrenaline when you face a hitter, and I think that's kind of what we saw. And he was, consistently at 97. We saw a few 96s, but it's not like it fluctuated. He was hitting 97 a lot, and we know he's got a really good changeup. One of the best changeups, really, of any minor league prospect. And, if you can play a changeup off an effective fastball that actually misses bats, because the batting average against his fastball wasn't that bad last year, but I think he got like 22 whiffs on over 200 fastballs that he threw, and so it was a little too hittable. He also has got a cutter, and he's starting to feel really confident about, and he thinks that's going to play really well. And you saw a guy who looks like he's a pretty promising starting pitching prospect today. And I can't say I felt that way when I saw him pitch last year. I sort of thought, are we on to the next here? But, credit him. He's obviously put in a lot of work in the offseason. And there's always a guy or two that really impresses you, in these lives, in these sims before the games start. A couple of years ago it was Landon Roop. And obviously he's turned into a contributor. So maybe this is Whisenhunt's turn.
Yeah, I remember the first pitch that he had it was either 96, 97, and we're sitting on the third base dugout here. And when I looked over to the scoreboard, because they had a TrackMan on the scoreboard, and I think that's an important piece to note in all this, because sometimes when you get stadium guns, they run a little hot, and you're like, is that actually 96? Is that actually 97? This was a legitimate 96, 97. And the first one I saw, I'd look up to the scoreboard, and I just had this visceral, goddamn, sort of like Elliot Ramos yesterday with the Rafi Devers homer. And like you said, there's a very big, even if the changeup is still the same, and even with that cutter incorporated, he said he was working on the slider as well, trying to make it more, I think as you put it, a little more sweep or slurvy.
Yeah.
That's all well and nice, but going from, I think it was 92.6 miles an hour last year to even something like, if we just give him 2 velocity ticks up and go 94.6, that's a very big difference in the type of pitcher we're looking at. And eventually the Giants are going to need these kind of young starters that they've had, guys like Hayden Birdsong, Blade Tidwell, we should probably talk about Blade Tidwell as well, Trevor McDonald. They're going to need them at some point. And if we're kind of going, maybe hierarchy, who's the next of these guys up? Again, it's still super early. We're not even in March. When you start hitting 97 in February, that's going to make the eyes perk up a little bit.
Yeah, and the other thing that I put in my story was the fact he was tipping his changeup. You're tipping his best pitch. He's got one out pitch. Everyone knows he's got it. and he's tipping it. He was doing this with his glove hand, sort of, and they fixed that. So, yeah, he's not doing that anymore. So that's another reason that we might see a more effective version of him. It's fun to watch these lives. It's fun to see the competition. They're doing something different this year. They never had actual defenders in the field, playing it up like you would play a game. It really was more like a simulated game without actual defenders, because always you'd have guys facing their teammates and they'd spray one through and it'd be like, oh, that was a hit. It's like, no, that would be caught. Well, now we know there are actually defenders out there. Know. And the cool thing, like you alluded to, the scoreboard has all the TrackMan data. So if you go back, to a little more of an analog time, as I can, you cannot. I would bring my binoculars to spring training every year, and I, from the press box, would use my binoculars to peep the radar guns that the scouts would be holding up behind home plate, and that was how you found out how hard someone was throwing. You either had a scout who would tell you, or you just use your binoculars like I did and look at their radar gun screens. And now they got the TrackMan thing up there. It's got the velo. It's got how many inches of vertical this and horizontal that. And I'm not Saris, so I'm not going to really try to talk about it in any more depth.
Friend of the program, Saris.
Yeah, friend of the program. But it really is cool how much information there is right there. And yeah, you can see exactly what they're throwing. And the other thing that I think is cool, if I can go on a tangent,
please do.
Is they're doing the ABS or the automatic ball strike system.
That's been fun.
So Patrick Bailey was calling balls and strikes for the first one. He was the catcher, but he was also serving as the umpire. Today they had Taira Uematsu, who was the umpire, and then the hitters could challenge or pitchers could challenge, and they could. Christian Koss challenged one the other day, and it was just off, and he got awarded a ball. So
and it was just it was
off,
barely off.
Yeah, but I think that was one of the few that Bailey missed. Bailey said that he tested himself against his calls against the TrackMan, and he was very, very accurate. I think he missed maybe 2 pitches out of 150 that he caught or something. And I mean, that's a good sign, because if you are a catcher who really understands the strike zone and you become really adept at knowing when to challenge, I mean, that's a pretty big value add. And the Giants may have a leg up there.
I remember, funny enough, when we were doing the ABS, or when they had the ABS yesterday, he actually challenged a call as a hitter, and he got it wrong. He got rung up. And they flashed it on the board. I think JT Brubaker dropped in a low curveball. He does the thing, and he goes up there, and everyone's like, whoa, what's going on there? And it was called strike 3. But, yeah, to your point, as valuable as Bailey's pitch framing has been, it's going to be even more valuable that he has a concrete knowledge of just that actual, however, the parameters of what it's going to be. And I think the way that the numbers have kind of bore out is that catchers typically do the best of the 3 people who can challenge it, that being catchers, pitchers, and batters. And, a lot of people have talked about how maybe this might impact Bailey's framing, but I don't know how Savant is going to go about this, but maybe we see overturns above average, something like that. Another stat where it's if Bailey knows the strike zone so well, how well does he know it?
And pitchers were the worst, by the way.
They were the worst.
Because pitchers are emotional creatures.
They want everything to be a strike. I think that was actually what Chris Sale said.
Emotional creatures.
Yeah, that was what Chris Sale said, because he went on record. That's a little too official, but they asked him about ABS, and he said, "I will never use it. I'm a pitcher, because to me, everything is a strike."
Yeah, and especially when you throw to Bailey, he can probably fool his own pitcher into thinking something is a strike. But well, Bailey knows, right? He's the one catching it. So if there's one you want to challenge, Bailey's probably going to challenge for you if it really is a pitch to be challenged.
I got reminded of the name of the Hall of Famers is escaping me. I think it's Hannes Wagner. The Hannes Wagner story about the rookie pitcher who.
You got a Hannes Wagner story for me?
I do.
You got stories.
I do. I think it's Hannes Wagner, but essentially the way the
How
story
old do you
goes,
think you think I covered Hannes Wagner?
I never said
I
that. But it's essentially that it's if I remember the story right, basically this rookie pitcher is throwing, and he takes umbrage at the zone. He's like, "That's a strike," and the umpire tells the kid, "Mr. Wagner will tell you if it was a strike or not." I think it was.
That, yeah.
I think it was him. If it wasn't, it was somebody else. But there's probably going to be a lot of opportunities we see where a ball 3 or ball 4 gets turned into a strikeout. But Carson Seymour didn't necessarily need that. He didn't need the call, because what he did the other day, you don't need to challenge it. And that's striking out Luis Ariz.
Yeah, nice segue.
I try.
Yeah, that was really polished.
I've been doing this for.
I like
I've been
that.
doing this for a little bit. I try.
Okay.
But we're talking about it's super small sample size, and it's early in camp. And
Literally
Carson
a sample size of one.
Sample size of one, and
Yeah.
Carson Seymour even conceded that. But we talked to you, talked to him, we talked to him, and again he conceded that yes, it is a little bit early. But when you strike out a guy that had a 3.1 strikeout rate last year and a 6.1 strikeout rate, just never strikes out. When you do that early on in camp, again, it kind of falls in that same bucket of like, again, even though it's early, like the nets this is like the actual live BP, like the nets behind the mound. That's going to be something that gets your attention. And, Carson Seymour was kind of bundled into that trio of Carsons last year, and he did get his opportunity to pitch. It didn't look great. I think it was like a 4.75 ERA, like a FIP in the sixes.
It was the 9 homers allowed that really got him.
Yeah, it was like 9 homers in 36 innings.
6 of them with 2 strike counts.
Not ideal.
No.
Not ideal. So
you ready to have your mind blown?
Please.
All right, Luis Ariz struck out 21 times last year.
Yes.
675 plate appearances.
That's a lot of plate appearances.
That's a bleep ton of plate appearances.
It's a lot of plate appearances.
Called strikeouts? Called strikeouts.
Oh, I know the answer to this.
Called strikeouts. How many?
2.
2? How'd you know?
How'd you know? I looked it up.
Wow.
Because I wanted to know how
Good
many
for
times.
you.
I wanted to know how many times he struck out swinging last year.
I mean, to me, I would have assumed with 21 strikeouts and 675 plate appearances, he probably more than half of them were looking. That was my assumption. And then when I went into the actual data and I could just called up his strikeouts in the last pitch and it was swinging. I'm like, ooh, this is not what I expected to see. And he struck out looking twice all year. And he probably was like in the top 10 in plate appearances in the National League. It's not like he played half the year.
Yeah.
So that's kind of crazy. I'm a little scared by him.
I mean, you were the one that asked the question the first day we talked to him, and you said, "How do you not strike out?" And his response was just so beautiful. I hate strikeouts.
Who
among us?
Yeah.
Who among us doesn't?
Yeah.
When you step in that batter's box, who among us does not strike out? But again, it's super small sample size, and I really doubt that Buster Posey and Zach Manassian are going to either put him on the roster or not include him on the roster because of one plate appearance in late February. But again, when you start thinking about ways, that's all these first days are. It's an opportunity to make really good first impressions. If you want to talk about cognitive biases and all that, I'll save that for the psychologists that come on the show later. But make a good early impression. It's a really good way to build some confidence going into the spring well. And now I think even a little more than he already was. Now he's going to be someone to kind of circle and see like, okay, like what do we got here?
I mean, the crazy thing about this bullpen is there's so many candidates and there's so many open slots. I mean, you could argue that really there's like 4 open slots in that bullpen, potentially. Yeah. Now we know that there's probably some incumbents. JT Brubaker has a contract through arbitration that's going to be guaranteed. You could pay him termination pay if you cut him, but they wouldn't have come this far with him if they intended to do that. So he's probably on the team. Buto is someone they like who's got major league experience. He's probably on the team. We know Walker. I think they're angling for him to be the closer. They think Eric Miller hopefully can come back and be the guy he was in 2024. But after that, I mean, Spencer Bivens probably has an inside shot. Tristan Beck probably has an inside shot. Are they going to use Hayden Birdsong out of the bullpen? I think they should if he has a good spring, because I think this guy's got the highest ceiling stuff of anyone they have. I think he could be one of the biggest difference makers in the National League West. I mean, if he's really good, the Giants all of a sudden, some of their problems aren't problems. And you've got a manager you just hired who's a development-oriented manager, who's a motivator, and you've got a guy Birdsong who maybe could use some motivation sometimes, at his own admission. So I think even if there's not room for him in the rotation, I think it serves everyone the best to have him on the big league team around the big league coaches. And now if he doesn't throw well this spring, he's not in the zone, then he's got to go down and work on stuff. But I think that's going to be one thing that's going to be interesting to see how they put the bullpen together, because that's one fewer spot for everybody else. And then you've got Peguero and you've got Seymour, but a lot of these guys have options. So even Bivens has an option, so they can really kind of respond to fluctuations in performances. And I know they don't want to have guys go up and down, but they'll have the ability to do that. So, who the hot hand is at the end of spring training may not be who the hot hand is at the end of May. And so I think we're going to see a lot of mixing and matching in that bullpen. But obviously, in a perfect world, they find a good mix of people and they keep pitching well and they stick with them.
Yeah, to the point about Birdsong, when we talked to Manassian during media day, he said that it's kind of maybe going to depend on how other pieces shake out. But we saw it last year. He didn't win that fifth spot. That fifth spot in the rotation went to Landon Root, but he pitched so well that it was like, we got to get this guy to the majors in some capacity. And before things, for lack of a better term, kind of fell apart with him, we saw him be really good out of the bullpen. And when you look at the composition of this bullpen, it's not what it was last year. Like when you think about the bullpen that they had last year, they had some like established dudes in there, especially like when you think of the emergence of Randy Rodriguez. And the one thing that really strikes me when I look at the potential composition of this bullpen is that it's really, really light on strikeout stuff. And I know strikeouts aren't everything. It's about getting outs at the end of the day. But sometimes you got runners on second and third, and there's one out, and you need a strikeout in that moment. And the league strikeout rate is like 22.8%, 22.2%. It's something like that. And of the 40-man guys that are currently in camp, the only guys that have an above-average strikeout rate are Walker, Miller, and Henches. And Henches, as it looks right now, probably maybe a little ambiguous for opening day. Probably not.
Yeah, I can't see him being ready for opening day. He's behind everyone right now. He's got the shoulder capsule. He had the knee surgery. They're really slow playing him. He hasn't faced hitters. I was even wondering, is he going to get in Cactus League games? I think the expectation he is, but I don't think he's going to be ready for opening day.
Yeah. So now you're looking at a situation where your bullpen has two guys who have above average strikeout rates. And even when you look at last year's bullpen, like even when you consider when that bullpen was really humming and at full strength, when you had Duvall and Rodriguez and Rogers and Walker and Miller, even when you had those guys kind of as your back end, they still had one of the worst strikeout rates as a collective in all of baseball. And they kind of ended the season pretty well. I think they were like sixth in the majors in ERA, and I think maybe fourth in FIP, something like that.
They're the best of the All-Star break, though.
They were the best of the All-Star break. And they had, Randy Rodriguez, like a very rare non-closer reliever who gets into the All-Star game.
Not only that, he led the player voting.
Yeah.
He led the player balloting as a non-closer. That's how good he was.
Yeah, and you can kind of look at this team too and be like, and kind of play the what if Randy was on this team game. I don't know. It's super unfortunate given his trajectory as far as him getting on the roster, not just getting on the roster last year, but kind of emerging as that role. But we'll see him in 2027, hopefully, if everything with the TJ goes well. But yeah, this is a bullpen that needs some stuff. And Hayden Birdsong, he's got some stuff.
Yeah, he's got some stuff. And what was impressive about his first 10 relief appearances last year, he had like 130 ERA or something. He also threw more than two innings or more, and I think maybe all but two of those appearances. So, I mean, when you can take down a chunk of a game like that, that does make you pretty valuable. And so whether it's Birdsong or I mean, Seymour's a guy who throws hard. He has had a swing and miss off-speed pitch at times. Maybe he takes a step forward and he becomes one of those guys who can, kind of sit some people down in the seventh inning, because he certainly throws hard and has the stuff, but he hasn't pitched in that role before. So, it's going to be interesting. And frankly, I think when you look at the development that has to happen internally, they got to get better at base running. They got to get better in outfield defense, not just with the people they, by signing Harrison Bader, but, Elliot Ramos has got to be better in left field. There are things they got to clean up internally, and that's going to be on the coaching staff and on the new manager. But I think where a lot of the growth is going to really have to happen is on the pitching side and in that bullpen.
And again, if Wisenhunt, if he can consistently, maybe not 97, but if he's in this, 94, 95 mile an hour range, that pitching group gets a lot more interesting.
One thing I kind of learned over the years when you're talking to someone, and usually it's about their health, but you can just pick up a lot just by their body language and when they talk to you, when they answer your questions. And when you can tell someone's like excited and enthused about the way they're feeling, I mean, it kind of leaps out of their face. And that's what it was like talking to Wisenhunt. He was really excited about where he's at physically, mentally, stuff-wise. And the opposite's true too. You can kind of tell when something's bothering someone or they're scowling or skulking about. They've probably just been in an MRI chamber and they haven't told you yet, So, just early on, I can read a lot out of just the way that Wisenhunt talks about him, about where he is right now. That he's excited, and if he's excited, then I think maybe there's a good reason to be excited.
Do I look excited, Bags?
I don't know. I can't read you. You're inscrutable. Inscrutable.
Very
right
bad poker face on my end. But Bags, before I let you get out of here, we're about 2 days away from games.
Yeah.
Actual opportunities to see an actual competition. I know we're about to lose a lot of these guys to the WBC, but who are maybe 1 or 2 guys that, maybe not necessarily, guys with definitive roster spots, but, guys that you might be watching a little extra hard?
Tony Vitello.
Tony Vitello.
I mean, I hate for this spring to be all about Tony Vitello. He kind of did a good job of making it about himself the other day, which maybe from a PR standpoint wasn't the right move, but that he felt that was the right thing to do. Had some things he wanted to get off his chest about the way things, the way the transition happened. So, but yeah, you know what? There's a lot of people in this league. There's a lot of people who aren't talking, but very quietly do not want him to succeed. Whether it's because of how much money he's making or the fact that he's getting an opportunity that a lot of people who have, a lot more pro experience aren't getting. I think we aren't hearing a lot of that grousing from anyone other than Joe Madden because this is a Buster Posey hire. And I think there's a lot of people who don't want to, kind of say something that would reflect on Buster because there's so much respect for Buster within this game. But the guy's a Major League Manager. He's going to be managing a Cactus League game. He's going to be attending a Cactus League game for the first time. So I've seen the comments on all of our stories, yours and mine, and some people are like, get over it. We want to hear about the players, Other people are like, I'm worried about this manager. He keeps talking about the University of Tennessee. That's his frame of reference in baseball. This guy's a communicator, and I think he's an effective communicator because he tries to relate to you. And the way he relates to you, at least so far as from what I can gather, is, you tell me, hey, I'm experiencing this right now. And he'll say, I know what you mean. I went through it too with this guy that I recruited or with this pitcher or with this catcher or whatever. And that's great. They can be very powerful. But his entire frame of reference is college baseball. And, I thought Greg Papa, actually, it was pretty harsh, but I thought he was on point on KNBR the other day when he said, Giants fans don't really care about college baseball. By and large, especially SEC baseball. They don't want to hear about it. So it's going to be really interesting to see once he does start having a frame of reference, are we going to be able to focus forward? And the other thing is, what are the mechanics going to be of this guy as he manages a game? He's never attended a spring training game before, even as a fan.
Number 1.
And he's going to be running one coming up in Peoria against the Mariners. So, I don't want to write about Tony Vitello every day this spring. I want to talk about the players too. But the fact is, he's the biggest story of this spring. He is. There's just no getting around it. So he's the guy I'm going to be watching. He's the guy we're all going to be watching.
It's going to be the most viewed manager, pitcher, reliever substitution in history, essentially.
Maybe. It might be.
And that's a bit of an exaggeration. But, Bags, you need no introduction, but where can we find your work?
On the internet.
On the internet.
I am a writer for The Athletic. We're part of the New York Times. Subscribe. Get the whole bundle.
I subscribe.
You can play.
You gotta
Do you play the games?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Oh, they're fun. We got a new one, Pips. Oh, it's addictive. It's good. It's like a logic puzzle. I like it. I love it, actually.
Bags, you know me. I don't use a lot of logic.
Well, anyway, subscribe to the New York Times. Get their fine journalism. Play the games. Get all of these delicious recipes, and get me for free.
Get him for free. You heard the man.
Get Ken Rosenthal for free.
Get Ken Rosenthal for
free. Get Jason Stark for free.
Get Jason Stark for free.
Yeah.
So many
Or
talented
pay for
writers.
those guys and get me for free.
You heard the man. Justice De Los Santos, Andy Baggarly. Peace out, y'all.